common question I'm asked is, how do I cope with my anxiety and fear during ERP and exposures? Hi, I'm Paige Pradko, a psychotherapist that specializes in treating people with OCD, health anxiety, and anxiety disorders. Welcome to Therapy for a Better Life. Now, before I get to the meat of the video, I left you a gift in the description and the comments below. A downloadable PDF on the top 10 things to know to practice ERP for OCD, phobias, and anxiety. Now, this is an interesting question, isn't it? How do I cope or manage my fear during ERP or any time for that matter? So the truth is that what you've been doing in the past by avoiding things and situations that trigger your fear, or getting reassurance, or trying to reason logically with yourself, or maybe ruminate, compulse, ritualize to control the anxiety and fear, all of that just works temporarily, just for the moment. And it actually reinforces your fear and the OCD cycle by it incorrectly kind of gives the message to your brain that you're only safe and bad things didn't happen because you did those compulsions. That method has never brought you resolution or recovery, and it's time to try something new. So in ERP, you decide what exposures you do, and you choose how much you wish to challenge your fear. Now, ultimately, you need to change your method of managing your fear. It helps to think of your anxiety or fear reaction to your obsession or your trigger as something that your brain somehow got wrong or misinterpreted. And to correct what your brain got wrong, you need to expose yourself to your fear. Label your emotions in the moment and allow whatever emotions come and go as your brain learns that you're safe. Now, I think of it like our brains are almost like toddlers or babies, and we have to be so patient as our brains overreact to something and then learn. Have you ever seen a baby look at something or someone and then all of a sudden they just burst into tears, and the parent stays calm and doesn't overreact, and soon the child learns that the scary thing is not really scary. What you're witnessing there is how the brain learns. And we can recognize that process in ourselves, in our own brains, and allow ourselves to feel things intensely, emotionally, but also be willing to go through that learning experience that we're safe. Now, we don't have much control over these emotions sometimes, including our fear response, because the connections from our emotional center of the brain, our limbic system, to the rational brain, the cortex, are much stronger connections than from the cortex to the emotional system, the emotional center of the brain. So our emotional center can override easily, take over that rational center of the brain. This is another reason why logic and telling ourselves something rationally doesn't seem to help us much with exposures or anxiety or OCD. Instead, we have to move to being willing to accepting the anxiety, accepting it during the exposures or any time, continuing to practice response prevention. I know it sounds scary and difficult, but it's so empowering when you learn that you can tolerate the anxiety and move through it. Now, while facing the fear, the more you kind of stay in the angst and the discomfort and pay attention to the uncomfortable sensations and label those emotions, actually say them out loud. I'm feeling afraid. I'm having thoughts that are making me feel afraid. The better that you do. Now, many clients have success with even being sarcastic, kind of saying, hey, is that all you've got, OCD? Or agreeing with their OCD. It's kind of interesting what the brain does with that. It's almost, it gets confused and the fear kind of loses its power. And your brain, again, learns that you're safe. Now, the thing that you don't want to do to manage your fear is to give yourself reassurance or say things like, nothing bad will happen, because reassurance can become compulsive when you feel like you have to say it. And we want you to get better at tolerating the uncertainty of situations. So after you've done some exposures and find that on certain exposures, you're no longer able to kind of muster up the anxiety, this just means that you've habituated to those particular fear triggers. So try to kind of dwell on fearful thoughts, kind of pump it up for yourself a little bit. So the goal in ERP is not to habituate, but actually to create safety learning and deliberately provoke those fearful thoughts and images so that you're creating more opportunities for safety learning and using your own fear to fight fear. So I look at how clients kind of progress in treatment by how they manage their fear. They start off usually by avoiding their fear triggers, and they move to this willingness of their first exposures. And then they kind of grin and bear it. But then they're willing to do it, and gradually they begin to feel a little more confident, and then they begin to confront their fears by coming up with their own ideas on how to trigger their fear, combine their fear triggers in ERP. And from there, they almost become like a seeker of anxiety. They look for it, they pursue it, they go after it with exposures. So if some situation or thought triggers doubt, uncertainty, anxiety, they actually go after it with their ERP. So at this point, their ERP becomes more strategic or incidental in the moment exposures versus planned ERP. So I want to remind you that I left you a gift in the description and comments below, a downloadable PDF on the top 10 things to know to practice ERP for OCD and phobias and anxiety. And if you need more help with ERP or OCD or anxiety disorders, please contact me at paigepradko.com. So until next time, I will see you in session. Take care. Bye-bye.